What if I told you that the moment you start becoming powerful, you'll start losing people? Not because you failed. Not because you became a bad person. But because your growth became a threat. The world's most powerful people all share one terrifying secret. The higher they rise, the fewer people they trust. And according to Machiavelli, that's not a tragedy. It's the law. If you've been feeling isolated lately, if friends have grown distant, if you've started walking alone, don't click away. Because by the end of this video, you'll discover why loneliness may be the strongest sign that you're evolving into someone most people will never become. Before we begin, subscribe if you're ready to master the timeless wisdom of Stoicism, psychology, and history, the kind of knowledge that gives you an advantage in a world built on distraction. Now here's the question almost nobody dares to ask. Why did Machiavelli believe that the closer you get to power, the more dangerous friendship becomes? The answer isn't what you think. And once you understand it, you'll never look at your relationships the same way again. There is a moment in every person's life that changes everything. It doesn't come with applause. It doesn't arrive with a trophy. It doesn't announce itself. It begins with a silence you never expected. One friend stops calling. Another suddenly becomes too busy. People who once celebrated your dreams now question your decisions. Some even laugh at your ambition. At first, you think it's coincidence. Then it happens again. And again. Until one day, you ask yourself, why does becoming a better version of myself feel so lonely? Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people believe success attracts people. In reality, success reveals people. It exposes who genuinely wants you to win, and who only loved the version of you that never challenged them. That is why history's greatest thinkers repeatedly arrived at the same conclusion. The road to greatness is never crowded. Not because great people hate company, but because truth has always been a lonely place. This is where Machiavelli's darkest lesson begins. He spent years observing kings, generals, rulers, and powerful families. He watched alliances form overnight, only to collapse the moment power shifted. He saw smiles hiding envy, loyalty hiding ambition, friendship hiding self-interest. And after witnessing the rise and fall of countless leaders, he reached a chilling conclusion. The closer you are to power, the more carefully you must choose who stands beside you. Because the greatest danger doesn't come from strangers. It comes from the people close enough to know your strengths, your weaknesses, your dreams, and exactly how to use them against you. Think about that for a moment. A stranger cannot betray your trust if you never gave it. Only someone you welcomed into your life can. That is why betrayal hurts more than failure. It doesn't come from an enemy. It comes from someone you once called a friend. But don't misunderstand this lesson. Machiavelli was not saying that every friendship is fake. He was warning that unchecked trust is one of the fastest paths to disappointment. The Stoics took this wisdom even further. They believed peace begins the moment you stop expecting people to behave according to your wishes. People act according to their character, not according to your hopes. And once you truly understand that, you stop chasing approval. You stop begging for loyalty. You stop fearing solitude. Because you finally realize something that most people never do. Being alone is uncomfortable. Being surrounded by the wrong people is destructive. And those are two very different things. So before you decide that loneliness is your enemy, ask yourself one question. What if isolation isn't happening to you, but for you? Because in the next section, you'll discover the first dark law of isolation, and why the most influential people in history intentionally kept their circles small, even when they could have surrounded themselves with thousands. Here's the first law that most people never discover. The moment your vision becomes bigger than your environment begins to reject your vision. Think about it. If everyone around you is comfortable staying where they are, your ambition becomes a mirror. It silently reminds them of the risks they refuse to take. the discipline they avoided, the dreams they abandoned. And people rarely enjoy looking into a mirror that exposes their excuses. This is why your transformation often creates resistance before it creates admiration. At first, they'll joke about your new habits. You've changed. Why are you taking life so seriously? Relax. One day won't hurt. It sounds harmless. But beneath those words is a quiet invitation. Come back to where we are. Don't grow too far. Don't become too disciplined. Don't make us uncomfortable. This is how the crowd protects itself. Not through violence, but through normality. The Stoics understood this thousands of years ago. Most people don't choose what's right. They choose what's familiar. And if your growth makes you unfamiliar, many people will slowly drift away. Now here's something even more unsettling. The people who once encouraged your dreams may become the very people who question them. Not because your dream is impossible, but because your progress forces them to confront their own inaction. Success has a strange effect on human psychology. When someone far away succeeds, people are inspired. When someone close succeeds, people compare. And comparison is the birthplace of envy. That's why Machiavelli warned leaders to pay attention not only to open enemies, but also to hidden resentment. Because envy rarely announces itself. It smiles. It congratulates you. It claps when others are watching. But when you leave the room, it begins to whisper. Have you ever wondered why rumors often start just after someone becomes successful? Why criticism becomes louder the moment someone starts winning? Why people suddenly find flaws in someone they ignored for years? It's because excellence attracts attention. And attention attracts judgment. The higher you climb, the more visible you become. And visibility comes with a price. Every decision is analyzed. Every mistake is magnified. Every victory is questioned. This is why many elite performers eventually stop seeking approval. They understand a painful truth. If you need everyone's acceptance, you'll never become extraordinary. Because extraordinary people always make ordinary people uncomfortable. But don't mistake this for arrogance. Stoicism never teaches you to look down on others. It teaches you to stop depending on them for your identity. There is a profound difference. A Stoic doesn't isolate himself because he believes he's superior. He isolates himself when necessary because he refuses to let outside noise govern his inner peace. Imagine an archer preparing to release an arrow. The crowd behind him is shouting. Some tell him to aim higher. Others tell him to aim lower. Some laugh. Some criticize. Some insist they know a better way. If he listens to every voice, he misses the target. But the moment he blocks out the noise, everything changes. His focus sharpens. His breathing steadies. His hand becomes still. And suddenly, the arrow flies exactly where it was meant to go. Your life works the same way. Every opinion you carry that isn't your own becomes extra weight. Every unnecessary relationship becomes another voice pulling your attention away from your purpose. So ask yourself, how many people in your life inspire clarity? And how many create confusion? Because the answer to that question may explain why you felt stuck for so long. And what you're about to hear next is perhaps Machiavelli's most unsettling observation of all. Sometimes the greatest threat to your future isn't the enemy standing in front of you. It's the friend standing beside you. And once you understand why, you'll never choose your inner circle the same way again. Now let me ask you something. Who has the greatest access to your life? Not your enemies. Not strangers. Your friends. The people who know your habits. Your weaknesses. Your fears. Your dreams. And that's exactly why Machiavelli believed that blind trust is one of the greatest risks a powerful person can take. This isn't a lesson about becoming paranoid. It's a lesson about becoming aware. Because history has repeated the same story countless times. Empires didn't always collapse because an army broke through the gates. Many collapsed because someone inside quietly opened the door. Think about that. The greatest danger often doesn't arrive wearing the face of an enemy. It arrives wearing the face of someone you've stopped questioning. That's why wise leaders never confuse closeness with character. Time alone does not prove loyalty. Shared memories do not prove loyalty. Kind words do not prove loyalty. Only consistent actions reveal who someone truly is. And actions become most visible when life gets difficult. Anyone can celebrate with you when you're winning. Anyone can smile when success is easy. But when failure arrives, when money becomes tight, when opportunities disappear, when everyone else walks away, that's when masks begin to fall. The Stoics had a powerful way of looking at this. They believed adversity is nature's filter. Pressure reveals character. Just as fire reveals pure gold, difficulty reveals genuine people. Perhaps you've already experienced this. Remember a season when everything seemed to fall apart? Maybe you lost a job. A relationship ended. A business failed. Or you simply went through a period when life became painfully quiet. Notice what happened. Some people disappeared without explanation. Some suddenly became impossible to reach. Others watched from a distance, saying nothing. But a rare few stayed. They expected nothing. They asked for nothing. They simply remained. Those are the people worth protecting. Because loyalty isn't measured during comfort. It's measured during chaos. Now here's where the lesson becomes even more uncomfortable. Sometimes, you are the one who has to become harder to reach. Not because you're playing games. Not because you think you're important. But because your time, your attention, and your peace have become too valuable to hand out carelessly. The elite understand something that most people learn too late. Every yes to the wrong person is a no to your purpose. Every unnecessary conversation steals focus. Every toxic relationship drains emotional energy. Every attempt to please everyone weakens your ability to become who you're meant to be. And energy is one of the few resources you can never earn back once it's wasted. Imagine carrying a bucket filled with water across a desert. Each person you meet asks for just a little. Just a minute of your time. Just one favor. Just one more conversation. None of the requests seem large on their own. But mile after mile, drop after drop, your bucket grows lighter. Then, just before you reach your destination, it's empty. Not because one person took everything. Because everyone took a little. That's how many people lose their future. Not through one catastrophic mistake, but through 1,000 small distractions. This is why solitude became a weapon for philosophers, warriors, inventors, and leaders. In solitude, you hear your own thoughts again. In solitude, your priorities become clear. In solitude, you stop reacting to everyone else's expectations and start responding to your own purpose. But don't mistake solitude for isolation from humanity. The Stoics never taught people to abandon the world. They taught people to master themselves before trying to influence the world. Because a mind that depends on constant validation can never be truly free. And here's the question that changes everything. If everyone suddenly stopped applauding you, would you still continue your journey? Take a moment with that. Because your answer reveals whether you're chasing purpose or chasing approval. And in the next section, we'll uncover the darkest law of all, the hidden reason why true power often requires silence, and why the strongest people in history spoke less, revealed less, and allowed their actions to become their loudest voice. There is one habit that quietly separates the ordinary from the exceptional. It isn't intelligence. It isn't talent. It isn't even discipline. It's silence. Not the silence of fear. The silence of control. Think about the most powerful person you've ever met. Did they feel the need to explain every decision? Did they argue with everyone who disagreed? Did they reveal every goal the moment it entered their mind? Probably not. Because truly powerful people understand something most never learn. The more you explain yourself, the more power you surrender. Machiavelli recognized this centuries ago. A leader who reveals every intention gives others time to prepare against him. Every announced plan creates opposition. Every disclosed weakness becomes a weapon. Every unnecessary word gives someone else another piece of the puzzle. That's why the elite often appear mysterious. Not because they are hiding secrets, but because they understand that not everything needs to be shared. Now ask yourself this. How many dreams have you spoken about that never became reality? It happens to almost everyone. You tell friends about the business you're going to build, the body you're going to transform, the book you're going to write, the money you're going to earn. For a moment, their excitement feels rewarding. You receive praise before you've done the work. And strangely, your motivation begins to fade. Why? Because your brain has already tasted the reward without earning it. The Stoics warned against this long before modern psychology explained it. They believed virtue isn't found in talking. It's found in doing. A disciplined person doesn't announce his strength. He demonstrates it. A wise person doesn't argue to prove his wisdom. He lives in a way that makes arguments unnecessary. This is why silence is so misunderstood. Many mistake it for weakness. In reality, silence often requires more strength than speaking. Anyone can react. Few can remain composed. Anyone can defend their ego. Few can control it. Imagine two mountains during a violent storm. One is covered with loose rocks that tumble at the slightest impact. The other stands unmoved. The storm doesn't care which mountain is stronger. But when the clouds disappear, everyone can see which one remains standing. Be that mountain. Not every insult deserves a response. Not every accusation deserves your attention. Not every opinion deserves space in your mind. Because every reaction has a cost. And the elite protect their attention like treasure. Here's another uncomfortable truth. People often test your emotional control without even realizing it. They criticize. They provoke. They gossip. They question your decisions. Not always because they hate you, but because they're curious. They want to know if they can move you. If your mood changes every time someone speaks against you, they've discovered your weakness. But when you remain calm, when you smile instead of reacting, when your actions remain steady despite the noise, something unexpected happens. You become unpredictable. And nothing is more difficult to manipulate than a person who governs himself. This is why the Stoics placed such importance on inner mastery. They knew that the greatest victory isn't over another person. It's over your own impulses. Every moment you refuse to react in anger, you grow stronger. Every time you choose patience over pride, you become harder to control. Every day you keep your focus while others chase drama, you move one step closer to excellence. Now consider this. How much of your exhaustion comes from work? And how much comes from explaining yourself to people who were never trying to understand you in the first place? That question alone has changed countless lives. Because once you stop seeking permission to become who you are, you begin moving with a quiet confidence that no applause can create, and no criticism can destroy. And yet, there is one final lesson. The darkest lesson of all. Because isolation isn't merely about losing people. It's about discovering yourself. And that discovery has transformed ordinary individuals into extraordinary leaders throughout history. In the final section, you'll learn why solitude is not the end of the journey, but the place where your greatest transformation begins. And why the person waiting for you on the other side of loneliness may be the strongest version of yourself you've ever known. Now we've arrived at the truth that most people spend their entire lives trying to avoid. The loneliness you fear may be the very thing preparing you for the life you've been praying for. Think back to every great transformation in nature. A seed is buried alone before it becomes a tree. A diamond is formed alone under unimaginable pressure. An eagle leaves the nest alone before it learns to rule the sky. Nature has never confused comfort with growth. Only human beings do. We assume that if the path feels lonely, we must be walking in the wrong direction. But what if loneliness isn't a sign to turn back? What if it's proof that you finally left the crowd behind? Machiavelli understood that every person who seeks influence must eventually face isolation. Not because power demands arrogance, but because clarity demands distance. Distance from constant opinions. Distance from endless distractions. Distance from people who unknowingly pull you away from your purpose. The Stoics saw solitude differently from the rest of the world. To them, being alone wasn't emptiness. It was training. Training the mind to remain steady without applause. Training the heart to stay peaceful without validation. Training the soul to find purpose without depending on the crowd. Because the person who can stand alone cannot easily be controlled. Read that again in your mind. The person who can stand alone cannot easily be controlled. That is why society constantly encourages noise. Endless scrolling. Endless entertainment. Endless comparison. Anything that keeps you distracted from sitting quietly with your own thoughts. Because silence is dangerous. Not to you, but to the version of you that still seeks approval. When you finally become comfortable with your own company, something remarkable happens. You stop chasing people. You stop forcing conversations. You stop explaining your worth. You stop shrinking yourself just to make others comfortable. Instead, you begin protecting your peace. Your standards rise. Your decisions become intentional. Your confidence no longer depends on compliments. It comes from keeping promises to yourself. And that's a different kind of strength. It's invisible. Quiet. Unshakable. Remember the mountain we spoke about earlier? As you climbed higher, fewer people remained beside you. At first, that felt like loss. But now you understand. The mountain wasn't taking people away. It was revealing who was truly willing to make the climb. And perhaps, the most important person you discovered on that mountain was yourself. The version of you that doesn't quit when nobody is watching. The version that keeps moving when no one applauds. The version that chooses discipline over comfort. Purpose over popularity. Peace over approval. That is the person the world can never defeat. Because real power has never been about controlling others. It's about mastering yourself. So if you've been feeling isolated lately, don't rush to fill the silence. Listen to it. There may be lessons there that no friend, no teacher, and no book could ever give you. Perhaps this season isn't removing people from your life. Perhaps it's removing distractions from your destiny. And one day, when you look back, you may realize that what felt like abandonment was actually preparation. Preparation for a life that required a stronger mind, a calmer heart, and a smaller, but far more genuine, circle. So let me leave you with one final question. If everything familiar disappeared tomorrow, would you still know who you are? Because your answer to that question determines whether you're living by the opinions of others, or by the principles that no one can take away. As the Stoics taught, the strongest fortress is not built from stone. It is built within the mind. And once you have conquered that inner fortress, no loneliness can break you. No betrayal can define you. And no crowd can control you. If this message changed the way you see solitude, let me know in the comments. I choose purpose over popularity. Your words might encourage someone who is silently fighting the same battle. If you enjoyed this journey into Machiavelli's wisdom and Stoic philosophy, subscribe for more timeless lessons on power, discipline, and self-mastery. And don't stop here. Watch the next video on your screen. If you have no friends and no help, you are being forced into something powerful: Machiavelli Stoicism. Because what you've learned today is only the beginning. Sometimes, the greatest victory doesn't begin with gaining the world. It begins with becoming strong enough to stand alone.